Announcements. Let's see. Sorry, I want to make sure my internet is working. Yesterday it was in and out. Okay. So a reminder, Grow Smart Maine has their annual summit on October 22nd. And I still have some complimentary tickets if anybody wants to go. Just send me a quick email and I'll get you on the list. It's a remote as well as in person. So you could attend in person in Biddeford and Bangor and Snow Pond and Hollowell, but then there's, I think, remote opportunities from anywhere. And the topic is home rule, which is kind of cool. So they're going to be diving into that. So let me know if you want a ticket for that. It won't be quite the same, but they're doing their best to, like I said, adapt to virtual and in person. Board training, I sent out an email and it was in our newsletter yesterday. This is basically an opportunity for any new board or committee members or any that just have never had kind of a MDC hour-long Main Street 101 training. It's going to be on October 21st. And there are 2 sessions to make it work with work schedules, which I hope your volunteers are appreciative of. I'm going to do it twice from 12 to 1 and 5 to 6, and it will be recorded. And the registration links were in our newsletter yesterday or in an email. So think about attending that or passing it on. Thanks, Joanna, for putting that link in there. And then save the date for January 20th at 8:30 in the morning. We're going to be having coffee and our annual awards, as well as a kind of a keynote speaker. So things are coming together for that, but just put that on your calendars. It'll be, like I said, a coffee morning meeting in January, which should be fun. And then for Main Street directors, I will be getting out in the next couple weeks details of the assessment schedule for January, which we'll be scheduling virtually, as well as some sort of remote directors retreat. So that's all coming down the pike. So lots of announcements. Any questions on all of that? Good morning, Phil.
Morning, Ann. How are you today?
Good. Okay. So today, a couple things. Joanna and I are going to be scooting at about 9:28 to our AmeriCorps Fellows host site training. So that is, I think Melissa will be on there and David. Am I missing anybody who's here? Because they are part of our host sites. So we will be ending like right on time this morning, which we usually do, but maybe a couple minutes early. And today I thought it would be great to talk about winter adaptation, not just like holidays in December, but what really happens in January, February, and March in your downtowns, which is often a period which is kind of collectively ignored, either because of the pain of the cold or, you know, people are hunkering down. So I thought we could talk a little bit about that. And we could also, I invited Zach to talk about specifically what he's been doing in Belfast. And I have some comments and then we'll open it up for discussion. And then we'll see if there are any other topics that people want to touch base on this morning. And I see Christina, I hadn't said good morning to you, but I think I said good morning to everybody else. So Zach, do you want to kick us off about how you've been tackling this topic in Belfast? And I guess just as a quick thumbs up, thumbs down before you go, Zach, how many of you have started some actual planning for winter 2021? Thumbs up, yes. Okay, so people are talking about it a little bit. Okay. Definitely a bit of a a mystery in that I think no one really knows what we're all going to be doing and how the pandemic will be going. So I think the timing today is good for this conversation, and hopefully it'll be helpful for you guys planning. Zach.
Yeah, thanks, Ann. So I don't have any really good solutions. So if anybody joins for that, you should just probably leave now so you're not disappointed. I remember one of the first conversations we had with businesses here was back in March. I think it was like March 15th or 16th. And the initial conversation was, we all want to close together, and what do we do? And at that point, everybody closed from March 15th until April 1st. And so now we're 7 months later, and a lot has transpired in between now and then. And so I think we're kind of like I said, we don't have any really good solution. We've had a lot of conversations about what sorts of things we can do. For me, it goes back to the letter that the 10 Main Street directors wrote to our federal delegation and state leadership, requesting financial support, technical assistance, and communication, and relaxation of regulation to support our downtowns. And that's kind of the same spot I think we're in. It's unfortunate the current state of any kind of federal stimulus. I think any of the things I'm going to mention are all part of a bigger strategy that I don't believe will necessarily fill an entire gap. So back in May, our city council approved a plan to allow restaurants and retailers to use sidewalk and parking spaces, and it's been pretty successful. Restaurants have said it's been really kind of a saving grace for them. So the program was set to expire on Monday, this coming Monday, Indigenous Peoples Day. And back in August, we started to have a conversation about what could an extension of that program look like. We had 13 businesses participate here in our downtown. And as we began to have conversations with them, the conversation turned to what are you realistically going to do? When are you going to operate till? And interestingly enough, and this is where I say I don't think we have any really good solutions. Interestingly enough, many of them said we're not going to operate past November 1st just because of the challenges with weather, the challenges they're already having with staffing, and the logistics of where their kitchens are in comparison to where these spaces are. So it just presents a lot of logistical challenges. And it requires a financial outlay that I think many of them aren't sure that they would make back if they were to invest in the infrastructure necessary to make guests and customers comfortable. On a positive note, so it is extended till November 1st. I think our city council has been tremendous. Our city staff has been tremendous. I think if we came up with a really good plan, I think they would revisit it. And I think I told Ann last week, I think our city council would fight over who got to make the motion over extending it. The council has just been tremendous in anything that will support businesses or our downtown. So that's kind of our curbside program. A lot of our restaurants early on adapted to do takeout. If they didn't do takeout, most, if not all, have an online ordering function and will do curbside delivery. So that's been terrific. Our Chamber of Commerce has started a conversation about delivery, which we'll see what happens. It's utilizing a taxi service out of Rockland. I'm curious, David, if you have any thoughts on how that works down there. The challenge here is just the population is just spread out. It's not like Portland. There are 5,700 people in Belfast spread out over 10 miles. So it makes delivery really challenging. And we have a sort of a seasonal population. I really appreciate what Melissa said. We had a call about the Main Street Maine website, and she talked about tourism in Belfast. And we have tourism here. I don't consider it to be the end all be all of our economy, but it's certainly, when tourists come in the summer months, it certainly helps tide businesses over during the winter months and allows them to stay open so we can be a year-round community. And so with a major reduction in that, there are going to be some challenges. We are kind of looking ahead at kind of promotional events we can do this weekend. We're hosting a a sidewalk sale. And the idea was really to promote safe shopping on our sidewalks for businesses and to draw people in over the next 3 days. I think all of our retail businesses are participating in some form or fashion. And so hopefully that will get the foot traffic downtown. We're looking ahead. We traditionally do an early bird sale, which isn't really an early bird sale. It's in December. It's early bird in the sense that it's early in the morning. And so we are starting to have conversations with business owners about what that could look like. It typically is a feeding frenzy and draws large amounts of people into businesses at one time, which obviously can't happen. So we're looking at ways to adapt that. We're looking at other types of promotions, joint promotion with businesses just to get the message out that businesses are open. And then other events, we had a board meeting the other night and started discussing kind of what opportunities there are for the winter in terms of a series of events and not just a one weekend, but what are things that can continually draw people downtown. Yesterday we had a ribbon cutting for a launch pad, which is a creative and performing arts space in our pocket park right in the downtown. So it's basically just a patio with a sign that outlines the rules. It's for people to busk. So those sorts of, I guess, opportunities. We'll see how well a busking stage works in January with 4 feet of snow and the wind blowing, but those just sorts of things, I guess, in the shoulder season between now and when it gets really too cold. So those are the sort of things that we're working on here, and variations of those. A lot of conversations with business owners. We've left the door open that there's no off the wall idea, and nothing's really floated to the top as being the solution. I don't think there is one solution. I think it's going to be a multi-pronged, multifaceted strategy. I'll say the other thing, I think we're lucky here in Belfast is that we have access to a lot of great outdoor venues. We have a rail trail and harbor walk, which has drawn a lot of people in. Those are the sorts of activities people are looking for. Our parks in general, and we're right on the water. So we've been really fortunate. That also sort of changes in the winter to some extent. And so, yeah, we're just trying to think ahead to what are the sorts of things to draw people in. So like I let off, nothing groundbreaking or revolutionary, but I'm sure other folks have thoughts or things that they're doing too. And so I think that's the power of this network, is sharing those ideas.
Zach, would you share with everyone what the municipal extension to November 1st actually means?
Yeah.
You had told me, but I think they'd enjoy hearing that.
You mean like what does it look like? What are people out?
Yeah, like what does the extension mean? It means they can
literally sit out, serve outside of their restaurants, tables and alcohol. And
alcohol. I was going to say, isn't there a liquor component?
The liquor component was right off the bat
as
part of it, and that was due to the relaxation of the state's rules in terms of. Actually, it was 2018. The state adopted a non-contiguous liquor license. The economic development director in Westbrook actually did it when he was in Biddeford and then was in Westbrook. So he was super helpful when it's on the books. Anybody can do it. And with the executive order or the emergency state of emergency, you don't even need a local ordinance to do it. It's part of the
That's a good point.
Emergency.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'll open it up in a second, but the other thing I was thinking about is a lot of the extension till November 1st is supporting restaurants in particular, right? With the outdoor serving and the liquor license. And you're doing the event this weekend, your sidewalk sale, to really more engage supporting retail, it sounds like. But I think it's a challenge to be supporting both. It's like you said, there's not one solution. So I think that's, just, you have to think about them differently, but also the same. And And one really important point I want to mention to you all about winter context, which I've been reading a lot about this the last couple of weeks. Ready? Bored people are cold people, and cold people go home. And keeping people engaged is really critical in winter programming. And people don't mind if they're outside in the cold if they are participating in an experience. So I think that's just something to think about as you're planning. I was like, oh, bored people are cold people. Yeah. And you guys, it's obvious, right? But it was a good reminder to me. So
one other thing too on the retail piece that you just touched on, the program was written to include retailers, and no retailer took advantage of the opportunity, which is interesting. I think, again, just going back to logistical challenges of moving merchandise in and out. And with the current guidelines, I think it impacts restaurants perhaps more than retailers, at least here, in terms of the numbers and that sort of thing and people's comfort level. The curbside program is already under discussion to continue in some iteration moving forward. Even if the pandemic was done tomorrow, it's already being discussed for the future.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments? Dave, I'll go to you. And I'm watching the screen, and then those of you that don't have your screens on, like Christina and Mia and Rosie, just take yourselves off mute. But I'll let David go.
All right. Yeah. And when it's appropriate, I'd love to share some of the things we're working on for feedback as well. But just a question for Zach and the rest of the group. I need to make a recommendation today as far as extending our program. It's running through the end of October. I'm thinking about extending it to November 15th. And I'd like to just get a pulse from the group of, Zach mentioned kind of that extension, but is anybody else thinking about extending it? Where do people stand? And just to kind of get some real data, that way I can share it with city council and the city manager if we're alone in that. I know Portland is extending to November 15th, but I don't know if anybody else is.
We've extended to November 15th as well.
Okay, thanks, Rob.
Portland's likely to extend to January 2nd.
Okay.
Wow.
That's helpful. I was talking to.
It's insane, but
Yeah, I was talking to Addie from PSA yesterday, and she had mentioned, I wasn't sure if that was official, but she was saying that that you guys are going home about it. So that's
not official yet, but I think it's inevitable.
Okay, thank you.
I did just put up a graph from a tweet because it's so timely, Carrie. Thanks for sharing that. Hopefully everybody can see that. If you are on the phone, it is a cold weather graph, really looking at when does it become too cold for outdoor dining? So go ahead, keep going with your comments, guys. I just wanted to put this up for a minute.
Zach, do you think that November 1st will probably be as long as you go, or do you think you guys would keep going?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
We asked businesses. I didn't want to put out a recommendation that they weren't going to do. Like we did.
Yeah.
There's jersey barriers sitting in the street, and so it would look really bad, I think, to have jersey barriers sitting in the street with no restaurants.
Same. Yeah.
That was the feedback. So if all of a sudden, like I said, we came up with some solution to support restaurants longer than that, yeah, I think we would go back, and I think it would be. Council would be receptive, but at this point, there just doesn't seem to be an interest from restaurants to do that.
Okay. Yeah. I've been pulling them as well. I think the struggle is that our restaurants are asking me because they're getting reservations for people requesting outdoor seating like into November already, right? So it's hard for them you can't really go week by week because they need to know how long they're going to have it. So I'm getting feedback from them like they want it as long as they're willing to. To get it. But so anyways.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I just wanted to try and have more feedback from everybody else to kind of say like
I think having the input from the businesses and being able to present that, I think, is really powerful.
We did a survey and we got over 300 responses back to questions on as a consumer, as a customer, what do you expect and what do you think you will be doing? And oh God, I think we probably had 50 or 60 comments related to outdoor seating with heaters. And I just wish to hell we would have thought of that back in August when the municipality was trying to figure out what to do with all this COVID money, was probably to invest in 20 outdoor heaters. Now it falls on the restaurant themselves to purchase them. But it's certainly very, very popular. I was in Vermont last week. Every place we went to outside had those outdoor heaters. I like the conversation about extending the outdoor seating dates, and I will look at November the 15th as well. And there is an appetite for that with the town council. I also like the idea of a sidewalk sale instead of an early bird. We're struggling with that as well, and I wish Amanda from Bath was on here because they're doing something, but it's going to be lasting over, I don't know, 4 or 5 days or a week or something. Also, I think we will rejuvenate our Operation Pickup program to encourage, the curbside takeout and pickup. And we're doing, we raise all the money for the holiday lights downtown, and this year it's going to be on steroids. We feel that if Brunswick becomes a destination, let's go see the lights in Brunswick. That will also translate into cash registers ringing both at restaurants and at the retail shops. So we're pretty excited about that. But yeah, those were some great suggestions, and I'm going to certainly follow up with the powers that be in Brunswick.
People finding that the heaters, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay, Dave. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm getting a lot of feedback that the heaters aren't really working that well because we have a lot of our downtown restaurants have heaters,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just not throwing off enough heat to really work into the evening. So we started to put fire pits out there too, and it's visually looks great, but it's still, people are bundled up and kind of shivering into the evening at some of the restaurants, and I don't have the money to tent them and kind of make that more effective. So I was just wondering, has anybody else run into that? Or people finding that the heaters are working in your communities?
I will say, reading about Nordic cities that actually, go extend their winter seasons longer than we have in the States. They use heat lamps, but they also include wind blockers, blankets, seat warmers. I was like, oh, that's cool. So they are trying to use other things than just the heat lamps. So just keep that in mind. I don't know if anybody has a heat lamp answer for you. So we do have some questions in the chat. Christina asked if anybody had seen anything about American Express Small Business Saturday promotion. She says she typically orders the goodie boxes from them each year and she hasn't seen it. So is anyone planning on doing something for Small Business Saturday? Rob?
Yeah, we're planning on Small Business Saturday, just like American Express doesn't exist. We're just doing it ourselves, as we've done in the past, where we raised $2,000, gave out $5 gift cards to everybody that came down, but we're going to do it outdoors, the distribution of cards, and it's going to be Small Business Week. So people don't have to immediately rush into a store that day and pack it up. They can spend the whole week to do it. And so we're going to do that, and it will start the Saturday after Thanksgiving, just as we've done in the past.
Michael, I know you have to leave. Is there anything you want to share or ask the group before you have to scoot to your meeting?
The only thing I would ask is if anybody discusses any sort of funding options for how to do, for how to purchase heat lamps, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I do think the CARES Act money, if there's any at the municipal level. I know Gardner has a little bit left, Melissa, because I heard that from Tracy yesterday. That is definitely a logical option, as Deb said. But if we come up with anything else after you leave, I'll let you know for sure.
Yeah, that would be great. I talked to Casey last night over at Kushnock, and they have the largest outdoor space in Augusta. And he was, they had talked about purchasing heat lamps too, but for the same reasons that David touched upon. he doesn't think that there would be very effective. So I don't know if there's
Okay.
any other options for very good ones or
Okay.
yeah.
The meeting first will pay for them.
Is what
Whoever leaves the meeting first today will pay for it.
That's true. That's true. Michael, I just want to say, seeing the old federal building lit up in Halloween, it's beautiful. It's really cool. And really, as you guys know, and Deb already mentioned it, one of the really key activation methods in the winter is lighting. So I want to commend you on the Halloween, and I encourage you to keep going because it really will draw people downtown. Because remember, in the winter, it gets dark so early. So these lighting activations is really a great idea. Also, Carrie put in, let's see, a question that went to DECD about if we're operating our restaurants in tents outdoors, can we close the sides? And the answer was the free airflow of outdoor spaces lowers the transmission risk of COVID, which is primarily transmitted through the air. Closing a tent removes that benefit. So for that reason, businesses that use tents for their customers need to keep the sides up to maintain airflow, even if there's inclement weather. Okay.
Yeah, so basically they're treating out, if you close off 4 walls,
Right.
it's, you know,
An indoor.
it's an indoor space and, you know, follows those rules as of today.
Okay. Other questions for Zach's or things you want to throw out to the group for questions or things you want to share on this topic of winter adaptation? Rob Biggs?
Yeah, so we're doing, this year, we're going to do the cabin fever reliever bingo. And it's going to be a monthly event that is going to be virtual bingo. And they're going to show up the day of and do a drive-by pickup of swag bags that we're going to put together, which will have cocktails, pre-mixed cocktails, or not pre-mixed cocktails, but pre-mixed, you add the liquor cocktails coming from our merchants, our restaurants and such. And then we're going to have a kid version as well with various Disney princesses reading the numbers.
Mocktails?
No, we'll do it. We'll involve ice cream at that point.
Oh, okay.
What does that have to do with bingo?
Well, we're playing bingo online.
Got to have cocktails with bingo.
But you got to have something to do while you're doing it. So you're going to have some swag and something to drink and maybe a little bit of food to eat.
Wait, so are you actually playing bingo like
Yes.
like on Zoom? Like you're going to have your bingo board and it gets called out?
Yep.
I'm playing.
We're playing up to 500 people. We'll invite you.
Fun. And will you charge to play?
My president, Stefan Normantis, did this with a virtual meeting event she had, and she had 450 people online playing bingo, and they didn't want to leave when it was over.
Awesome.
So it was apparently quite fun.
That's great.
You have to invite everyone. I totally want to play bingo.
Yeah,
I'm in. And you've got to wear your plaid. That's the only consideration.
Oh, yeah, right.
When is that, Rob?
We're going to do the first one probably in December, but definitely start January, February, March. And then the kid versions will start up then as well.
A couple other things. Brooke in Bucksport and Christina in Skowhegan are saying that they're going to do a small business week versus just a small business Saturday. Christina says, thanks for the idea. She's going to steal it. So great. And Carrie said Portland is using some just received emergency cares CDBG funding for grants up to $10,000 for tents and heater purchases. Entitlement cities are different, of course, but worth noting that CDBG cares can be used for this. And if you're in Gardner, Biddeford, or Skowhegan, remember that historic commercial district revolving fund can be used by your businesses for, you know, some of this COVID adaptation. That was clear in the guidelines from National Main Street Center. So that's just a reminder. Who else hasn't had a chance to check in or raise their hand or shout out? Phil.
Quick question about winter festivals or things like Bright Nights Bath. Is everyone still planning to at least move forward with the planning phase of those and maybe adapt those to COVID, or at least keep planning them until things change and we have to cancel them? Just curious.
Anybody have large winter festivals that they are moving forward with in a planning phase? Nancy.
Yes, sorry, I missed the first part of the question because somebody came in my office.
Oh, no problem. We're talking about winter festivals and winter events and whether you guys are still planning them, or are you planning them for virtual, or are you planning them for in-person and going to consider canceling? How are you guys navigating?
Ours for in-person with modifications from what we've done in the past.
Great.
And weekend.
And when is that held, Nancy, in Holton?
The first weekend in February.
Great.
And almost everything is outside for our events, so that helps us a little bit. We do things like we have a giant sliding hill. We use our soapbox derby hill that gets turned into a sliding hill. So recognizing we'll probably have to have more volunteers around to keep the numbers limited there. We do, in our Civic Center, we have skating events. We'll probably have to break those up rather than a 2-hour event, maybe do 2 1-hour events with a break in between, limit it to numbers, possibly pre-registration. The two things that we really feel that we can't do, we have it's called a sawdust prize search, where basically the kids would dive in and look for stuff in the sawdust, which wouldn't work, and a $50 scramble where $50 are thrown into snowbanks and say it's like herding cats when they get. So we figured those two events we couldn't really do, but we're actually looking at doing a different thing. Like we can still get the prizes. Usually the banks sponsor the $50, and places like McDonald's give us fry cards for the other things, different things like that. That we're looking at doing a thing where we can still have prizes for the kids without them diving into piles to dig for them. Although that it is kind of amusing to watch, but yeah, so we're doing Moose theme because it's Moose Stompers weekend and looking at doing some stuff like that. But almost everything that we usually do, we feel we can do some with some modifications. We do snowmobile rides that they bring toboggans in, so they're already, you know, have maybe people in one of the toboggan things. And
that's great.
So yeah, we're moving forward.
Nancy, is that a good fundraiser for your organization as well? I'm sorry.
It is not a fundraiser. It's a community event that we've done this is our 25th annual actually coming up. And I have
to say, it's nice to hear, it's nice to hear you moving forward in like a safe way. I'm really glad to hear you share that.
Yeah, we've had, we had an internal meeting and we've had our first committee meeting to start putting it together. We usually get quite a bit of sponsorship. So other than, there's some suppers, like the Snowmobile Club does a supper and things like that. Everything is free. So it's a day that the families can just come out and have fun outside. And we've done things like, human curling and human dog sled racing with some of the original stuff that we used to do, because this was an idea that came to us from Loring Air Force Base. They used to do up there. And their last base commander was our town manager for a while. So we were looking for a winter event, and this is what we came up with. So we've kept it going.
Great. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Nancy, is that on your website? Can we find that information?
There's a separate website, moosestompers.com, and there's also a Facebook page. There's nothing, unfortunately, there's nothing new up there, but I'll give you an idea of what we've done in the past.
Great. Other questions, comments? Christina.
We are very likely canceling the holiday stroll and all that it entails, which is early December, as probably a lot of others are thinking about. But we haven't made decisions on our winter snowfest, which usually happens in the end of February. And actually, we have done some preliminary planning for our skijoring, our equestrian skijoring event, with the hope that even if we can't have a crowd there, we could maybe broadcast it on television. So, so I think that that's kind of still up in the air. But I would say also that we are planning from a budgetary perspective to host no events in 2021. So that way, when we are budgeting, we don't, maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised that we can host an event. But right now, the budget does not include any income from events. So, however, it does include 2 iterations of a brew bag. So that's helpful.
So you're going to do another brew bag.
We're going to do it twice in 2021, probably spring and fall again, if depending on what things look like. But yeah, we're going to do it twice. It was such a great income generator. We're going to net $14,700 from it.
Yeah.
So.
And Melissa, I hope your brew bag sales are going well, because you're right in the middle of it for Swine and Stein.
Yeah, I have just 50 bags left to sell, and we hope to make at least $10,000.
That's great. Glad to hear that.
You're not able to ship them, are you?
No.
And could Christina and Melissa share how much their bags are?
Share, so I'm sorry, Cara, share how much the bags cost. Is that what you said?
With the retail, I mean, I know I could go look it up, but
No, that's okay. Melissa's are $75.
Yes.
And tell Cara what's included in the Swine and Stein bag.
It's got 13 beers. We also are including a growler, which will get filled across the street at our newest brewery opening this month, and a free voucher for a Johnson Hall show, and a bunch of other goodies.
And like
so it's valued at over $100.
Yeah. And Christina, how much was yours?
Ours was $75 and included beer and food and some other swag.
Yeah. So the adaptation of some of the food, the virtual food and drink, is really proving to be quite successful. I think I shared on a previous call the ice cream delivery that Main Street did nationally. They were having like an annual meeting or an annual event of some sort, and they literally had delivery people out all over the community delivering like pints of local ice cream, and everybody had ice cream together or something. So you guys are being really creative with that. I want to throw out a couple other activation strategies for winter. We talked about lighting briefly before Michael had to hop off. Fire. I don't know how many of you have downtown fire pits. I mean, this may be a code issue, or your municipality might be like, I don't know that we can do that, but maybe there are spaces, those pocket parks, Zach, I don't know, with your buskers, whether you could also have a fire pit in that location. Or Carrie, I don't know if you have any examples of fire in downtown Portland. Ice.
Just in 1836.
I know. I knew you were going to reference the fire. Lighting, fire, ice sculptures, whether it's activities or games with ice. I still think there's wellness. Zach mentioned the trails in downtown Belfast, but there's those winter runs and winter walks, Santa walks, all these things where you can get people moving, which of course keeps them warm and not bored downtown, right? And I think great opportunity for public art downtown, whether it's a temporary installation or highlighting some of your more permanent installations. I think that's just another reason to come downtown. Let's see. And food, we've been talking about food. I think there's both the adaptation of the curbside and the windows and the tents and the roasting chestnuts in your fire pit kind of thing. And then there's the adaptation of your more food-centered events and what those looks like. So I did just want to mention those ideas. Other questions?
If I could share something that the town of Brunswick is doing for Halloween, given it's crazy, is they're going to be doing a couple of drive-in theater nights with 2 Transylvania Hotel something or whatever it is. I don't know, a kids movie and then Ghostbusters, but that's all weather dependent because it's, you know, if it's windy, you can't do it. They're going to have a scavenger hunt throughout the entire community. So kids can dress up and then just stick their little pumpkin out the window and somebody will put candy in it. But it's designed to feature all sorts of areas of downtown and surrounding areas as well. They are going to do a pumpkin decorating contest on the mall under a huge tent and really space out the kids well and give them free pizza. So they've got some plans in the works. Not going to be their parade and their big party that they have every year, but at least it's something. And I don't know, have your communities decided what to do about trick-or-treating? Have they banned it, or what's the story in your towns? Anything? Okay. Thanks.
We have one of the most successful Halloweens on Main Street, I think, in the state. It draws people from even past Augusta, and this year we're not doing it, obviously. So, and it's been kind of discouraged for any type of trick-or-treating in-person events, obviously. So
Yeah,
we may do some lights. Yeah.
I have read the CDC guidelines, which does say it's like a moderate risk trick-or-treating. I have to say, I'm like really conservative with all this COVID stuff just because of, you know, family things. But I don't quite get the trick-or-treating. I have a little bit of a disconnect. So I don't know. I know the town I live in, it's not decided what's happening. So I can't answer that. I know Augusta, I believe, is going forward with a modified downtown Halloween event that they are doing. And Michael had to hop off, but you can see it on his Facebook or webpage. And yes, Phil, if the ice disc could be recreated, I'm sure that counts. I mean, that's a great, actually, example of Mother Nature providing an ice component in a downtown that attracted really national media. So yeah, if that could happen again. Nancy.
Yeah, and I just was going to say about Halloween, our chamber and rec department are working on a program. They've worked with the police department. And of course, we're very fortunate that our downtown is set up in it's called the Square, Market Square, but it's like an oval rotary, if you will, with the businesses around. And our chamber is in the downtown. So they're going to have people register, sign up, and let the kids go down. Some of the businesses will have tables outside with prepackaged treats, and they'll go down one side and come back the other and then leave out Broadway Street. So there won't be any interaction. They'll do it spaced so that they can still have something, and they're doing it in the afternoon.
That sounds great. Another great adaptation from Holton. And Joanna put up the link for Augusta's Halloween in the chat. Mia.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, David. Then I'll check in with Mia.
Okay, just 2 quick things. First, regarding events, I guess candidly, my concern is we are canceling some pretty popular and well-known events, and it sounds like some others are moving forward with things. And I guess being fully transparent, I'm worried about like the wait and see planning and then canceling later, because I feel like it hurts some of those who have to cancel things earlier, and we saw that kind of in the spring. So I would just request that we as a group stay in pretty tight communication as things are getting canceled, because like for Festival of Lights and things that we're doing in Rockland, I mean, these are completely gone off the table. It sounds like, similar to Christina, we're not planning for any events, and most of our sponsors aren't able to touch in-person events, and our city won't even let us have a ticketed like small gathering around the tree lighting. Like it's going to be completely virtual live stream this year. So I just ask that like we all stay in pretty tight communication about that, because I'm just from an optics perspective, I know I'm going to catch a lot of stuff for canceling those if other communities are moving forward. And then I wanted to also just quickly circle back around to, we lost the thread on the winterization effort, but one thing that I wanted to flag was like, it sounds like a lot of us have good momentum with that, and we all want to do it again in the spring. So it'd be great to stay in tight communication around how it's going, because if we all do something in the winter and it's kind of a flop, that will be what people remember when we try to do it again in May. So just to try and build that collective case together as we're making the cases to our councils and our communities to do this again in May. Just wanted those two things to be on the table, and so we can better keep track of it. And then shout out to Melissa. I'm super excited to pick up my bag, and a bunch of people in Rockland are going together to kind of explore Gardner and pick up their bag. That's a good thing for a bunch of us are really, and I asked for recommendations from both. I think people are excited about that.
That's
Awesome.
great. That's great. And that's a good, Joanna and I will put our heads together to see if we can help figure out how to facilitate some of the collective thinking on that. Anyway, thanks for bringing that up, Dave.
In Ellsworth, we're moving forward with our Cider and Cheese Festival. This is our 3rd annual one. And I'm glad to hear that the bags and virtual tastings are going well, because that's obviously what we have to do this year. But this year we extended our festival to be 3 days rather than just one evening of 2 rounds of tasting. And so we're doing a virtual talk on Friday night, which is November 13th. We're actually using our local museum, the Woodlawn Museum, and the talk will happen there via Zoom. And then Saturday we're doing still a cider and cheese market, much like a market, farmer's market, but we're actually giving the bags away there, and we're doing that in tandem with our local farmer's market. And then Sunday, we're going back to the local historic house, Woodlawn Museum, and we're actually doing an outdoor concert there with them. And a community school did a concert up there a few weeks ago, and they capped it at 100, and they were sold out. And it worked out because the band kind of was on the porch of the historic house, and then they sort of put placements for people to sit on the lawn. So safe outdoor, it worked out quite well. So
that's great. Thanks, Cara. Mia, you want to tell us what's happening in those Western Maine communities and Rumford and Norway, or any questions about that part?
I'm actually here more to hear from the other towns. I keep up more with Rumford than I do with Norway, but in Rumford, there's a very active group called Beautify Rumford, and I know they decorated the downtown. I personally haven't seen it, but I've heard lots of great comments about it, and they usually put corn stalks up. So that's a big piece of it. There's some great ideas that have been floating around here today that I'd like to share. I think one of the reasons why I wanted to sit in on this was to hear how people are dealing with outside restaurants during the winter, because as you know, in the Bethel area, that's a huge issue for us with Sunday River, and also to a somewhat lesser extent with Mount Abram in Greenwood, which is right next door, and Black Mountain in Rumford, which is not really very close to the downtown. But at any rate, some great ideas have been shared, and I appreciate the opportunity to hear about them.
We always love having you. And if you think of other things that, needs you feel like you'd like to ask, just get in touch with me, as you always do. And I'll see if I can.
You're a great resource.
Find answers for you. Great.
And I loved your comment too about people who are cold being bored and going home. No, I think that's excellent, because the meeting I'm going to next is with our Oxford County Wellness Collaborative, and they're very concerned about the mental health of people during the winter months, especially now. So getting more activities outside, getting people involved, which we do a lot of, but I think making them more organized and less DIY is a good thing. So
yeah,
thank you.
Great. And Mia, just one question from the Western Mountains area and all the ski mountains. I've only read about Saddleback so far. Are the mountains, anybody know, the Alpine Mountains planning on opening regularly, opening with adaptation? Christina, you may know also.
I haven't heard. So I do keep in touch with Carolyn Castaldo at Sunday River, but I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Christina, do you have any indication on the mountains opening?
Yeah, they're really pushing online sales. I know, so I can speak for Sugarloaf. They're pushing online ticket sales. I initially had heard that they were going to do a reservation system, but that seems to be a rumor. But it seems like they're full speed ahead at this point with, I'm sure, reduced capacity, which is going to help. I'm sure that selling tickets online is going to help them estimate how many people are coming in for that day. So
True. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was anticipating.
You said reservations, like reservations for chairs?
I think I had heard reservations for like people on the mountain. So,
Yeah.
but that doesn't seem to be the case.
No,
And then the only other thing I heard is a huge push for outside tailgating rather than inside, lodges too. But all right, so more to come on that. I do want to hear from Brooke if she has anything to share or ask the group.
Sure, yeah, good morning. I'm in Bucksport, and much of what you're doing, we are also doing. We have a big parade of lights that typically draws several hundred people downtown, and that is being moved to like a stationary parade, so that the floats are on one side of Main Street and people stay in their cars and drive. It doesn't really do much for the downtown businesses, and that parade typically does. People stay open late, and because it's cold, people go inside, but it's a nice annual tradition that is still happening. We are doing Small Business Saturday stuff, and I just had a call already earlier this morning with several downtown businesses to talk about some coordinated promotion. We also have a first day of hunting season promotion that has really grown over the years. That's on Halloween this year. Businesses open at 6 a.m. and we're coordinating some group advertising in local papers. And then just briefly, we did a program in the spring, which was essentially we raised a matching fund, and we sold these $10 coupons that were worth $20. So the matching fund doubled your money. They could be used at about 20 businesses that participated. It looks we ran out of the matching fund in June. It looks likely that the municipality now is going to contribute another maybe $10,000 to $15,000 to relaunch that program going into the holiday season. So I can share, I know we're running out of time, but if people want to know more about that, it was very successful. And in the spring, it put about $32,000 into our downtown economy. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, if people want to know more, I'm happy to, talk at any point.
Thanks, Brooke. And the stationary parade, that's a new term for me, but it does make me think of like windows in downtown Portland, Carrie. Is it worth doing like really focusing on window displays or contests or in any of your downtown areas that draw people? I mean, I think of like when I was really little, my parents would bring me into Boston to Newbury Street, and we would walk Newbury Street to look at the windows at Christmas. That was like an outing for us. I don't know. So we have to wrap. I hope everyone feels like this was a topic that, literally didn't leave much time for anything else. But it's a really good topic. The meeting's been recorded, so if you want to share it with others in your community or committee members or whatever, we'll send that out after the fact. As always, reach out to Joanna or myself if you have questions or comments or want to get in touch with someone on the Zoom today. So that's it. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye. Good to see everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, Ann.
See ya.
Bye.
And thank you.
Thanks, Zach.